Hello, everyone, and welcome to Radcast on a whole series of conversations that we're going to do. The topic is Revolution of Compassion. And welcome, Gaio. I'm really psyched you're able to join me for this conversation. A revolution of compassion. Well, what does it mean to you, Gaio? Not to put you on the spot, but I just really want to get it flowing.
No, absolutely. I'll begin here. I think this is another really core key component of the conversations, in my opinion. When I think of compassion, I'm actually reminded of also empathy. That compassion is so necessary in our world today in order to bridge so much of the separation and so much of the dysfunction happening in our societies, to be able to soften the suffering, to be able to bridge the communication between us, to begin solving these problems and creating a better world for everyone. And beneath compassion, what really is compassion? We throw it around so casually. And the way I really like to think about it is in the context of empathy, because empathy, is actually it's really a cognitive faculty. It's something you can't just turn compassion on. It takes a certain capacity to be able to project our own awareness into the reality and the experience of another being or any kind of being. Taking an alternative perspective deliberately to share in another person's experience. This is empathy, and to have a revolution in compassion, I also think requires somewhat of a revolution or an innovation in empathy. As human beings, there's been research done on this, on empathy, and that human beings, I think, actually we're hardwired more for empathy. There's literally brain cells in the frontal cortex called mirror neurons that are specifically designed that allow us that faculty to exit our centralized perspective, ego perspective, and share in another person's experience. And the human species is more wired for that than some other species. And there's a couple of species on the planet that are more wired, dogs and dolphins and elephants and stuff like this. But the human species particularly have that ability. But yet we're still developing. We haven't been developing for that long, relatively. And even some of us individuals have more of a capacity for that than others. So the great thing is that we know about this. We know that it's literally this biological thing in our system, and that we can cultivate that not just through conceptual training, but literally. I think it excites me what potentials there might be with various technologies or various methods and techniques to literally begin to enhance our individual capacity for empathy, both on an individual and a collective level. I think could just have a radical effect in setting the foundations for revolutions of all kinds. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. In fact, like the mirror neurons, I love that term, because if you consider the global holistic model, which we talk about in the context of radical collective intelligence, the global holistic model, really, its intent, its vision, the vision of it is to be a mirror back to us and to all of planet Earth, and to say, look, if you do this, here's what you're going to get. It reflects back to us. If you put this out, here's what you're going to get back. And so even the global holistic model can be a powerful platform for empathy, systematic empathy at the level of collective intelligence, because it looks at the holistic impacts on everything. How is this going to, affect you? How is it going to affect the dog? How is it going to affect this rainforest? And compassion is just sort of a catch-all word. I think for me, it really it includes empathy, or it should. I mean, that's the intent in which we're using it, because really you need empathy in order to have compassion. Maybe it's like a prerequisite for compassion. Mm-hmm. So the revolution of compassion, as I see it, it is a revolution, because we're going from an old, dysfunctional, broken, bankrupt system called separation and hoarding And, you know, with separation comes this distancing, kind of like almost like intentionally ignoring the suffering of others and the needs of others, because we other them, you know, we treat them as something else, something different. And so part of the revolution is letting go of that paradigm of separation and really embracing the unity that is our birthright. And so it's one thing to have empathy and, you know, feel the pain of another. It's another thing to really be united with the other and say, look, your suffering is my suffering. It's our suffering. Let's deal with this together, because no one of us can be whole until all of us are whole. That's the revolution. It's really looking at things from a completely different lens and paradigm. And it's also a revolution in the sense that, you know, it will change everything. And either you're in favor of that or you're not. Either you're in favor of this radical revolution, this radical transformation, or you're not. But different from other revolutions, it is completely nonviolent. That is the intent. That it be a peaceful revolution, born out of communication, understanding, empathy, compassion for each other and for Mother Earth, and embracing this whole new paradigm, the whole new story for humanity, which we talk about in a separate series. You know, how do we, and really, so the new story for humanity, the revolution, and humanity itself are all co-evolving. That's the exciting thing. It makes it really dynamic. But at its core, the revolution is a revolution of going from separation to unity, from division to wholeness and integration. And part of the reason I use revolution, or I love the term revolution and casting this as a revolution as opposed to an evolution, is because we really need radical transformation. It needs to be a radical revolution that transforms life on Earth right down to its roots, right down through, you know, through politics and economics, through culture, all the way down to the bedrock of the new story for humanity and the new story for Mother Earth.
There really is a key. Interweaving too. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I was for a second there. What you just said about the relationship between the revolution of compassion and the humanity's new story. Because I see too, like as far as I think one aspect of humanity's new story is also part of the information and communications revolution that's already well underway, is that we now have this ability to share our individual and local stories at a global scale. And that's allowing for a lot more opportunity to exercise empathy and compassion. You know, and we could think of so many examples, such as, you know, when the earthquake happened in Haiti years ago. You know, there was almost an immediate you know, feedback to the global mind that was able to then respond instantly and recognize the emergency and the suffering happening there. And, you know, immediately masses of people were sending both intent and resources to help that situation. So both, you know, the technology is supporting this revolution, and it's also supporting our ability not just to share when we're in an emergency, but also just being able to share different perspectives at a massive scale, at rapid, you know, in a rapid process. So it's exciting. That's very exciting that we're already underway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in this series of conversations, we're going to be, you know, specifically focusing on the revolution, the revolutionary aspects of this global movement, because really every conversation here on howtochangetheworld.org is ultimately going to be part of the revolution. So anyway, yeah, it's all so integrated. It's almost like sometimes I have trouble, like, well, shoot, where, you know, what are the bounds of this conversation? Because it really is one big conversation. Yeah. But part of the paradigms of radical collective intelligence that we're embracing are, you know, that we first need to root down, and root structures fan out, right? So, we start with one single aim of, a whole world. That's one idea, one concept expressed in two words, a world that is whole, a world that's complete and healthy. And then we break that down and say, well, what do we need to get there? Well, we need a bunch of solutions. We've got a bunch of problems. We've got a bunch of assets. We need a bunch of solutions. And then those solutions kind of fan out. And that's what that's what we'll see on the homepage of howtochangetheworld.org, is all these different series about all these different solutions. Other series focusing on problems, others focusing on solutions. And so the revolution of compassion is really a solution among many. And perhaps another way of looking at it is it's sort of just a different perspective on the entire body of solutions. It's looking at the entire body of solutions as a revolution and saying, hey, this constitutes a revolution. So it's not separate from, it's just more like a different perspective on the entire body of solutions. Yeah.
And another thing about the term compassion, is we have it's calm and passion together. So we, the communication of passion, or the community of passion. So I think it really is, when compassion is fully actualized, it's really in the scope of all of us coming together, recognizing this passion for what's happening in a community in a communicative way.
Yeah, and also on the etymology, I also understand that compassion also came from like sharing, coming together, and pan, like bread, like breaking bread, sharing bread together, sharing a meal together. Because and we've experienced this in our own lives time and again. When we sit down and break bread with others, there's a whole new level of connection there, because what we're doing is, by eating together, it's like we're addressing this fundamental human need for food together. I'm feeling it, you're feeling it, and we're addressing it together. So it creates this bonding. And likewise, these recorded video conferences that we do together brings us together, and we're sharing our passion, sharing bread, sharing passion, just sharing together. And that's when we really realize, wow, how connected we are and how much we need each other. So, I want to spend my life on, on these recorded video conferences, just sharing what I have to share with the rest of the collective intelligence. That's also part of the revolution. It's just, it's a revolution in sharing versus hoarding. See, the old model, we'd hoard information, and I want to be the only one who's the master at this one particular domain or niche or whatever, so I can bill myself out at $500 an hour and hoard a bunch of resources from people who need what I have. But I'm only going to dole it out little by little. And, when your $10,000 retainer is gone because I spent 20 hours working on your problem, well, fuck you, I'm gone too. So it's a revolution in sharing, and a revolution in, the boundaries that separate us, imaginary or otherwise. Right. So, yeah. Revolution of compassion, bringing our passions together, our needs together, our perspectives. Yeah. Wow. All righty. Any more to contribute to this first intro to the topic?
Not at this point. It's a really good one. It's a really good one. I think compassion is also, silence and listening. Mm-hmm.
Totally. And the silence is us listening for you. If you're watching but not yet participating, we welcome you to participate. We need you in this revolution. We invite you. So join the revolution. All righty. Well, with that, shall we wrap?
Yeah.
This one? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Gaio, and thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. And feel free to jump into the discussion forum in the meantime. Thanks so much.